The rope dart has become one of my favorite ghosting tools in Resynced. It has surprising stealth utility and has been a very useful tool in isolating targets for my target-only runs. And so, let me share with you everything that I learned about the rope dart. Let's begin with a quick rundown of the basics. You get the rope dart early in the story, about 2 or 3 hours in, depending on how much you explore. You get it right before you infiltrate your very first plantation warehouse. Once you acquire the rope dart, you get it at its fullest capacity, meaning that there are no upgrades or other items needed to use its full potential. At its core, the rope dart lets you pull enemies from afar towards Edward or the player. From my testing, the farthest enemy you can reach is around 18 meters away. I tested this by looking at how far I can reach a guard who was right beside a bell. This allowed me to semi-accurately check the exact distance since I can see how far the bell is relative to Edward via the compass. However, it is important to note that pulling an enemy from that maximum range will not pull them into the reach of the player. This is because it seems that enemies can only be pulled around 7 meters from their original position. While this means that pulling enemies who are 8 meters or more away from Edward is a no-go, I'll explain in a bit how this exact mechanic is perfect for ghosting. When you pull an enemy, you have a couple of actions you can do. If you pull an unaware enemy into your reach, you will get the option to assassinate them. You can do this by simply pressing the assassinate button if you're close to them. Alternatively, using the sweep to knock down an enemy and follow it up with a ground takedown is another route. If you pull an enemy that is on higher ground, they will likely fall to their death. From my experience, a height that's around half the height of a guard would often almost kill them. Otherwise, they will simply be knocked down. Then, pulling an enemy below Edward will simply pull them close to the object that Edward is standing on. Pulling an enemy when there are objects between Edward and the target will lead to the target crashing into the objects and becoming knocked down. When this happens, Edward can approach the target and use ground takedown. As mentioned earlier, pulling enemies at max range is an effective trick for ghost runs. This is because if you pull it off in a position where an enemy cannot spot you, i.e. in bushes or within a smoke bomb, you will remain undetected despite them being pulled meters away from their post. This works because enemies do not automatically detect Edward after they get hooked. Their vision cones and detection remains working, and so they need to see Edward to detect him. So when they get pulled and enter the investigative state, they start wandering towards the direction where the dart came from. This turns the rope dart into a very useful lure tool since you can force a target to check out a distant spot that is outside of their standard route. I actually find this more useful than the whistle since the whistle tends to attract more than one guard and requires the target to be the closest to Edward so they can be lured. With the rope dart, as long as you hit the target, you can lure them regardless if there are enemies around. Although, nearby enemies will also investigate the area, but would go to random spots instead of the direction where the dart came from. Alternatively, shooting the rope dart beside the target and not hitting them will also lure them. This is a quieter option and very effective in short ranges. At max range, it sometimes doesn't aggro the target enough for them to investigate distant spots. One of the coolest mechanics of the rope dart in the OG was the ability to hang enemies. This is also in Resynced, however, I do find it quite lacking compared to the original. For one, hanging targets and pulling them up while you drop down is not in the game anymore. Instead, you can only hang enemies by pulling them up. The animation takes about 5 seconds and you cannot move during this time. It is important to note that to hang targets, you need to be in a non-standing object that is also overhanging. So basically, tree branches, long ropes, and those wooden overhangs in the side of buildings. Hanging targets is also kind of noisy. So if you hang someone when there are guards 10 meters away, they will hear the commotion. In my ghost runs where I had to hang enemies for those optional objectives, this made the runs hard since I had to lure enemies away from their general area. When in combat, the rope dart functions basically the same. You pull enemies toward you. However, pulling enemies that are aware of you means that you cannot prompt an assassination. The best you can do is either do a sweep to knock down an enemy or use a heavy attack for big damage. But the most effective way to use the rope dart in combat is by using it to cancel enemy attacks. Using the rope dart against officers and snipers who are actively aiming at you cancels their shots. This also works against grenadiers who are prepping their bombs. It can also be used to reposition targets so you can then kick them into a wall to create a takedown opening. If there is a live grenade on the ground, you can also use it to pull enemies into the blast zone. Lastly, let's talk about the other uses of the rope dart outside of using it against enemies. First is that you can use it to silently disarm or destroy alarm bells. Just free aim at the bottom part of a bell and shoot. Do note that if there are nearby guards, they might hear the rope dart and begin investigating. You can also use the rope dart to put out those jar torches during nighttime. While you can just roll over the torches to destroy them, having this ranged option is still useful in certain scenarios. Lastly, you can use the rope dart to destroy objects that are blocking your path. For example, fences or boxes that you might want to get rid of if you're trying to do a specific move. While this can be useful, it can also serve as a warning. Since rope darts can destroy objects like boxes, you may end up destroying a box that you can use to run up a wall. Still, the situation will be very rare and honestly, I didn't cross upon it during my playthrough, but it's possible. And that's it. That is everything I learned about the rope dart in Black Flag Resynced.